How's it going?
Oh, all right. I'm a little anxious because I have reason to believe that you are the real Kaiser Sose.
I'd tell nobody. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I was just talking about that movie with my sister, and I have actually never seen it. I
Really?
I know the ending, but but I've never actually like watched it from beginning to end. It popped up around that time that everyone was like, "Oh, I gotta throw in a twist." It was like, in the Sixth Sense, and
Right, right.
yeah, it was that kind of time. But
It was good.
they just kind of slipped through the cracks.
If you start making conversation referencing everything around me in the back, I'm gonna really start getting worried.
So how about what you been up to?
Uh, just work, just work.
Oh,
And
why?
and did I tell you about that the Batman glowing eye scare I had? I did, right?
Yes, you sent me a picture of that, and it immediately gave me a. I have to, if you don't mind, I'm going to post that
Yeah.
to the Twitter feed. I had it gave me flashbacks to a similar scare that I had when I was young. I had gotten Mum Ra's tomb, and I knew it glowed in the dark. Like I knew the teeth, and I for some reason forgot that the eye stickers also glowed in the dark. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night. I had set it up on my yeah, I would play with it during the day, and then I set it up on top of the dresser when I went to bed. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and the first thing I see is two glowing eyes and teeth pointed
Yeah.
directly at me, and I was like, "Holy
Yeah,
cow!"
that's exactly what happened. I moved. It was the big Ben Affleck Batman. I had no idea that the eyes glowed.
It's even worse because you're like, Ben Affleck, why?
I had no idea. And I rolled over in bed, just happened to be there and opened my eyes and saw these two tiny little like, and they were probably, they were only like 5 feet away from me, but I was like, what? And I froze for like 3 or 4 seconds, and then I realized what was happening. But
You gotta see if
man,
it's gonna move or like is
right.
it just
That
gonna
was the
stay
worst
there?
3 or 4 seconds of my life.
And then you realize that it was the Batman from Batman Superman. You're like, that guy brands people. That's terrifying.
That's right. That's right. He could have branded me.
Because I actually liked Ben Affleck's depiction of Batman. I don't know why people hate him.
I did too.
But
I
he did a
did too.
fine job. There's only so much you can do with a bad script.
I thought you were going to say there's only so much you could do with Batman, and I was ready to fly through the screen.
I just feel like he's a worn out character.
There is only so much you could do for Superman.
I think he's
Mikey.
Superman. Uh, I will defend Superman too. You just have to write him well.
Right. Yeah.
He's a good character.
So did you get anything new? Oh, did we get a mystery box?
Guess who's got something else that came in the mail?
Wait, that looks flat. Is it like a warrant?
It's
You being subpoenaed to Congress?
They're looking for me because of this whole usual suspect thing,
Yeah.
and they'll never find me. No one will give them the satisfaction. Who's in here? Oh, hey, it is Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman.
Oh, that is such a great figure.
Nice. I really don't remember ordering this. I must have ordered her off of that discount place that I found. So thank goodness, because I feel like if I did, it's been a while. So if this had been, a clump of Barbie hair, I'd have been out of luck, because I think the return window is closed by now. I know, probably not, but yeah,
No.
she's neat. At least it's cool. So now that I have her, I can swap out the other Spider-Woman with the scroll head.
With the Skrull. Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to say that. And if you didn't, I was going to ask you.
Yeah, that's the plan. So what about you? You got anything new?
I did. I got the Target exclusive limited run Tiger Force Flint.
Hey,
I like his face paint. He's obviously just got done watching
nice.
a Conan the Barbarian marathon and went with that kind of paint. And he's got a little bit right there that makes him look like he's wearing a microphone like me.
He more looks like he deserves to be in a Predator movie.
Yeah, he definitely looks like he should be in a Predator movie. I love the the shotgun in the back.
Very nice.
Yeah, this is very cool. I mean, it's basically the same as the other Flint figure, but it's got that Tiger Force look.
So
I like it.
So was this a deco that came out in the original line?
Yeah, he was part of the Tiger Force in the original line.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say he's lacking some battle cat stripes.
No, he's got them. They're black on the
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
yeah, they're black on the orange, and
Very,
they
very
don't
subtle.
yeah, they don't, maybe it's just the camera, but they don't stand out as much as some
Oh,
of
okay.
this
Now I can see him.
because of that dark kind of caramel color he's wearing.
He can hang
Um,
out with he can hang out without that.
yes, the the Tiger Force when they came out when I was a kid, and this is funny because I think today we should finally talk about GI Joe.
Oh, good selection because I have super spotty, hyper specific, tiny bits of knowledge about GI Joe. You're much more of an overall brand.
Well,
Uh,
you owe thanks to G.I. Joe because Hasbro in 1964 released G.I. Joe and felt that boys wouldn't want to play with dolls,
mhm.
right? And they coined the term action figure.
Hey, there you go. To be used against us in episodes of Big Bang Theory for years to come.
Right. Big Bang Theory, that 70s show, all,
The whole nine.
they all jumped on there. So yeah, I was ready to say that the Tiger Force came out at a weird time. Because they took like all of my favorite characters, uh Recondo, Outback, Flint, and just threw them into one group. It was just bizarre. It was almost like they were reading my mind and made a separate team because the way we played with Joe's is like we had these because there were so many different teams, if you will. I'm talking about the 3 3/4 inch. So my brothers and I had to like divide them up specific,
Mhm,
so so I had like Cobra Commander and the basic Cobras, and I had the Dreadnoks,
mhm,
and Dale had Destro, the Iron Grenadiers, the Baroness, and kind of that side. And then he kind of had Extensive Enterprises, which was Tomax and Zaymont. You know what I mean? So
mhm.
he almost had like the business end of the Cobra regime, and then I had the military end.
Oh, so you weren't set up where like one of you was Joe and one of you was Cobra.
Oh no, that would be no
Huh.
fun.
I had no idea how brothers played
Right.
with action figures. My situation was different.
And then we had the good guys in such a way that Dale had. So I had the main Cobras, and
Mhm,
he had the main Joe. So he had Hawk,
mhm,
um, and all of the regular Joes. And then for some reason, Duke in the cartoon was the field commander, right? So I had Duke and sort of his offshoot of team of members that I liked. And then coincidentally, Duke was the Tiger Force guy. Like he was leader of the Tiger Force. So like they literally took my collection of that offshoot and made it the Tiger Force. And then, they had the Python Patrol. And then we kind of put that, and then of course the more leaders showed up for Cobra, like Serpentor and all the others. So, and then Cobra Law showed up and screwed everything up. But
See, Cobra Law is what really kind of pulled me into Joe because it was a little bit beyond. Like I knew everyone knew G.I. Joe, and I had buddies who had the action figures, and I was still very much with the mindset that the larger things were better. So they had these tiny little army men, and I'm like, what are they for aside from dinosaur fodder? Okay, they have guns. I mean, you're fight. I've got guys that are alien robots that change shape. So what are these gun guys going to? Although it did blow my mind when Marvel did the GI Joe Transformers
yeah,
crossover and they murdered Bumblebee,
right.
which was fascinating to me. So I was like, oh well, maybe they have a little bit of a chance, but not against Metlar.
No, not
Uh,
against Metlar. Yeah, and GI Joe's history, besides the history that the long history of how much GI Joe is loved by my brother and I, but like I always say that you could teach a US history class using comic books.
mhm,
You could almost do the same thing studying the history of the GI Joe action figure because they came out in 64. They had all four of the military units or brands represented, and then it went through that, and then I want to say it was early on like 65,
Mhm.
I think they gave us our first G.I. Joe of color,
Mhm.
which was pretty early on. And you, when you look at G.I. Joe, and I've said, I've mentioned it on this show before, they're so inclusive. Like early on, there were plenty of women, plenty of people of color, Asian Americans, Native Americans, Russians, Brits, Canadians, uh,
It was
Hispanic cultures. Like they
it,
threw everybody in there. It was awesome. And that happened early on in 1965. They
it
gave us our
was
first African American soldier.
mhm. I definitely remember there being like a fairly wide range of characters, and it was interesting. I will always give them kudos for trying. And I remember watching the show and being like, "Hey, Roadblock,
Right.
why is he talking like that?"
Talking in rhyme. Right.
Or
Yeah.
like Quick Kick, and I was like, "Oh." Although Quick Kick was interesting because they were focusing more on like the actor aspect
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
of Bruce Lee, which was kind of interesting. But
Hmm.
even like the women in the movie, and I completely forgotten how Jinx like gets her butt slapped, and it's
Oh,
somewhat
by
objectified.
Falcon. By
And I was
Falcon.
like,
Yeah.
wow, there are worse things out there. There are worse things
There,
out there, and it's awesome that they were trying to branch out and be like, okay, let's pull all these people in, uh, and then making the steps to adjust and be like,
right.
well,
Right.
maybe our other black character should not be a guy that makes nonstop basketball
Or it
references.
was, yeah, they didn't even release him as a figure. They
Didn't
caught
even
that
get a
one right away.
figure.
They were like, I think we goofed on that one. But there was an episode of the original series where the Baroness had some sort of silly hypnosis machine or
Mhm,
something that controlled men.
mhm,
And it was an episode dedicated solely to the female characters of G.I. Joe. And they had random like infantry and mechanics and everything.
mhm.
Everyone was female. And then Baroness came up with female cobras that we had never seen before that. And now we've got the Valkyrie figures,
Yes.
which, look great standing behind the Baroness. But yeah, they even did that in the animated cartoon because Scarlet was a big piece of everything. They had Cover Girl, Lady J, like they had some main
I
characters.
I remember a random episode where yeah, this is through super foggy memory. There was an episode where something went wrong at the Joe's headquarters, and everyone passed out, or they were irradiated, or something. And the person that saved them was Cover Girl. Like she realized
Yes.
something was
Yep.
wrong, and she's like dragging them all to safety. And I don't remember why she was immune. Maybe she was like the only one that didn't inhale all the terrible stuff. But I thought that was actually
Right.
really cool. That she
Yeah,
was the
I
one
remember
that
that episode. I forget what what the catalyst was for them being out, but that was. But then, in '65 they released that, and then it came the era of the Vietnam War,
Mhm.
and people protested that. And then we lost a little bit of soldierism, and then Joe went to the adventure team where we got
Mhm.
real hair and beards, like they didn't have to look like clean cut soldiers anymore, right? And then in 1974, what did we get, Tom? Kung Fu Grip.
required for all your action adventure needs.
Right. People confuse sometimes the Kung Fu Grip with the swivel arm. Remember, so the original 3 3/4 inch Joes only had the elbow bend.
Mhm.
And then I want to be say by series 3 or so, they gave him the joint at the bicep,
Yeah.
which gave him swivel arms so they can. And remember it was Storm Shadow had the nunchucks, and then he could actually hold them because he had the swivel arm. But the Kung Fu Grip was a softer rubber
Mhm.
hand, so you can actually move the hand and get it to grip things. The problem is it was made out of a crappy polymer and it would fall apart, like they'd lose. The thumbs have always been trouble for Joes. They were cursed by that backwards nail, and then the Kung Fu Grip didn't work, and then the 3 3/4, especially the first series, man. That as soon as you put the gun in Rock and Roll's hand,
Mhm.
boom, the thumb
I,
would just explode off of it.
I do vaguely remember Joes with no thumbs,
Yeah.
and wondering why they were so thin. I guess you couldn't give them like a big wad of plastic to hold on to the gun, but I guess plastic use was still it was not new, but they were still trying to figure out. All right, well, there's hard plastic for guns.
Mm,
The hands themselves are also a somewhat hard plastic. It's not going to
yeah,
last long.
they were
Oh, we'll just
brittle,
have,
and they would snap off all the way, like,
yeah,
all the way down
you get a
to
full
the
tear.
wrists.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're like, gah.
Now you're just gonna you're gonna have to karate chop people. That's
It's
that's it.
like Don Knotts.
That's the best you can do. Where was our Don Knotts special edition Joe?
Yeah, because he would have
And they'd call him Wide Eye.
had with the big collar.
Yeah, he's there for surveillance.
His code name would be Regal Beagle.
Duke, something's going on.
That would be great. That'd be
Who
great.
let out all these ostriches? Good job, Wide Eye. And this sounds like an actual Cobra plot.
Right. Yeah,
Cobra Commander would absolutely try to take over the world with exploding ostriches. Foiled by Wide Eye. So, who was your first Joe? Who was the first one you got?
The first one in the house, and like I've said, my older brother Derek was usually the one to lead us to something new.
Mhm.
And we had Star Wars and the whole 9 yards going on, and Micronauts. They had little figures too.
Yeah.
And Derek had to be in I don't know, 3rd or 4th grade, and he got a couple of the first line of G.I. Joes.
Mhm.
And then my younger brother, who was in kindergarten at the time, snuck them out of the house to bring them to school and lost them on the playground.
Oh,
and
no.
I remember my older brother being, ripping peeved about it, and us going to the kindergarten playground. My father drove us there to see if we could find the Joes. And of course, I mean, you got a playground full of kindergartners, and you leave G.I. Joe, and they're gone. You're not gonna find them. Yeah.
Some lucky kid found some Joes.
But those were the first ones to come into the house.
Mhm.
Everybody wanted Snake Eyes, of course. But we had those first line. I want to say my first G.I. Joe was Flash, the laser trooper, and he had the orange vest, who had the same head as Short Fuse and everybody else, pretty much. There were like 2 heads. There was Snake Eyes, Scarlet, and they had their own head. But then you had the Short Fuse head, which was, they'd paint a beard on it sometimes. It wasn't even sculpted. It was painted for Rock and Roll and Breaker, Short Fuse, Flash. And then there was the Grunt head, and who had, Zap had the Grunt head. Grunt obviously had the Grunt head. So that's kind of how that first line went. But yeah, I want to say it was Flash.
Okay. So, and have you seen the episode of Toys That Made Us where they focus on Joe?
Yeah, a million years ago when it first came out.
Okay. Shameless plug for Toys That Made Us. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. It's a lot of fun. I'm gonna steal one of their fun facts. I love that Snake Eyes was essentially, we're too poor to do anything else.
Right.
We don't have enough money to do any more paint decos. We can't just make them all one color. We'll just say he's a ninja.
He was a commando. He was a commando.
Oh, is he?
They didn't even label him ninja. On his file card, it said he was martial arts trained, but he was the commando. But yeah, everything was black: suspenders, grenades, everything.
And he was the first one that I was drawn to. So I was like, oh, who's the cool ninja?
Of course.
Guy?
Now we know why. Right. Now we know why Tom wears nothing but black. It's because of Snake Eyes.
We have Spider Flyer to thank more for that.
Yeah, I actually feel like if I had a brown beard, I'd look like Breaker right now with my headset on.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I didn't even like Flash so much because he had he had the laser gun, which was a tiny little thing, but it had a cord that went to the backpack, which I guess was the battery, like the Ghostbusters had,
Yeah.
And but the cord never would stay connected. It was very rigid. And it was a pain in the butt because you couldn't move them because the cord would pop out. So I eventually just popped that thing out of there.
So were you collecting Joes throughout most of your childhood? So you were following the line from kind of the first, like some of the initial waves up through when the movie hit.
The animated movie, you mean?
Yeah, I know it didn't come out in theaters. They broke it up and they put it on TV because they learned from traumatizing children with Optimus Prime. But I mean, Duke still I mean, they bring him back at the end, but
They
Duke
bring him
still
back at the end.
technically dies. To wipe the slate and get new toys out there.
Yep.
So did you pick up, I guess, like kind of the cast of new characters, and did you get the Cobra La
Oh
figures?
yeah,
Because I remember
Cobra La.
seeing those and
I
not being able
was
to get them.
itching for them. They came in a 3-pack.
Yes.
You had to get all. You know, they had a 3, and then and then at the same time, they launched Sergeant Slaughter and his renegades, Red Dog, Taurus, and God, I'm gonna get beat up for not remembering his name. He was, but he was a former Cobra.
Mhm.
He was a former Viper,
Okay.
and he joined Cobra's group.
See
And when
that
his name's gonna pop in my head in a minute now.
see that it's funny you bring up Sergeant Slaughter, because that was one of the other things, right? I again, like, I had seen Joe and I had kind of passed it by, and then I was super into wrestling, and Sergeant
Mhm.
Slaughter was a prominent figure in that, and him, yeah, it was part of the crossover appeal, and I remember him advertising it and seeing commercials for Sergeant Slaughter with Joe, and I was like, what is he doing on Joe?
Yeah,
I gotta watch
I
a few
thought it was
episodes.
brilliant. I thought it was brilliant, and they even did an LJN style
Mhm.
Sergeant Slaughter figure with the GI Joe stripes down his legs. Yeah,
I'm a little disappointed that, I mean, but you can only tame the Iron Sheik to do so many things and not be crazed. But I was expecting him to show up as well, because that was like his main arch
yeah.
rival in wrestling, and it'd be really cool to have ported that over
Well, what was
into
beautiful
G.I.
about
Joe.
it is, do you remember Sergeant Slaughter's finishing move?
Cobra Clutch.
The Cobra Clutch, right? Against the Sheik's Camel Clutch.
Yeah, they rival each other perfectly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the more we talk about it, the more kind of fascinating it is, the amount of crossing over that GI Joe did.
Yeah,
You
they
had
did a lot.
Matt Tracker, who
Yep.
was randomly a Joe. You had it's gonna there's so
Fridge
much.
Perry.
There's
Fridge Perry.
yeah, the fridge, the Big Boa, he was supposed to be a rival to Rocky Balboa.
Right.
You had There is a character in Inhumanoids who winds up in the show, has a suit that they wind up making, that Earthcore winds up making. Like, I can't, I forgot his name. He crash lands in like a
Mercer.
random battle.
The
Yes,
other Mercer is the other guy
yes.
from Cobra, from Sergeant Renegade, Sergeant
Oh,
Slaughter. His name was
okay.
Mercer.
Okay. So, all right. So the Inhumanoids guy's name is still a mystery, but I thought it was really cool because they used the story was they used parts of his destroyed jet to make his suit. It
Oh,
never.
that's cool.
He wound up never getting a toy, unfortunately. Brian Flynn from Super 7, can you get on that? Can you get us some Inhumanoids? Because we know you have the license. We're not even sitting on it. Make them. Make those guys. But yeah, I think it's really cool that they've been in a lot. Cold Slither, I'm fully convinced, was supposed to have some kind of crossover with Gem, because it had the same kind of look, the same kind of rock style. I mean, the production studios were the same. But and later on, I think IDW. Oh wait, no, not IDW. It was either IDW or Dreamwave, who did a comic featuring Joe's crossing over with other Hasbro properties, which was kind of fascinating. Like they've been in Unicron. They literally fought army ants. If you remember that franchise.
Yes.
It's way more crossover appeal than I think a lot of other toy lines.
Yeah, they were great. And I gotta say, when I look back, as much as I love superheroes and comic books, and they're a big part of my collection in my life now, like, I had never experienced the same joy that G.I. Joe brought me as a kid. Just the array of characters, all, and I still credit G.I. Joe to both my younger brother and I going into theater, because we get those file cards and try to assimilate some sort of accent and personality for each one of them, and change voices when we were doing them. And and we, like I explained before, we do the rubber band, we'd set up
Mhm.
these big worlds, and then G.I. Joe had an amazing playability factor with the vehicles and the play sets, all of which we've spoken about on the show before.
Yeah.
But just that vast world, and at the time were very affordable and prolific. Like I would get excited to get a new figure and look on the back and see the new, and they would have the silhouettes blacked out. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? Like they would have the ones that were upcoming blacked out, and then you'd see them coming. And man, walking into Models or Play World or Child
Mhm.
World and seeing new GI Joe figures was the most exciting thing. Like
Mhm.
some of my greatest memories of playing with my brothers was GI Joe, and I think that's why they have such a fondness. And you know, a Real American Hero toy line ran until like 92 or
Yeah.
something like that, and then there was a big break. I don't think we saw Joe's again until like 2000. It was late, and they came in the
Yeah,
two packs, and they were repainted. The sculpts were weird. They
yeah, they tried
introduced new
they
characters.
they tried a lot of things. I think this might again with the crossover thing. Only toy line to crossover with Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat.
Right, yes,
It's
and they were
fascinating to me.
amazing figures.
we I wonder what the rights red tape is uh regarding the classified series, because the way that that line is going and the way that those pre-orders are starting to hit and pummel collectors are just getting buffeted by all the new Joes that are coming out
Yeah,
and upcoming Joes, like their pipeline reviews reveals are
I've
ridiculous.
seen ones I didn't know were
You
coming out. Viper,
are
the ninja, the female ninja with the skull mask.
It
Uh,
makes you wonder. They're very much they're running at a decent clip through their catalog, and I wonder if, yeah, and they're branching out, and I like that they're reaching out into some of the later waves. Like I have forgotten his name again. He he's like a
I
tracker
know who you're
character.
talking about. I
He's
know
got the
he came
cool
out in
Predator.
the 2000 line with the two
Yeah,
packs. He
he's got
came out then
yeah
with
he's got the cool
Helix and them. Yeah.
yeah, and we're getting Helix, which is really so. Well, I guess I should back up. What are your thoughts on the classified line? I know we're skipping like extreme and the movie lines, whatever, but
Right.
the classifieds are the current
Yeah.
line, and it's kind of what got me into full on collecting Joes, because I had no interest until this
Right.
line popped up.
I love them. As an adult,
Mhm.
to be able to buy the characters that I fell in love with when I was a kid
Mhm.
and sort of bring them back in more detail. And I will say that the original line, like each one of the characters had a little something. Like you fell in love with the figure, which
Mhm.
made you want to go get the character. Now
Mhm.
this is different because now I fell in love with the characters and now I want the figure, right?
Mhm.
But the figures were just so, for lack of a better word, those original A Real American Hero 3 3/4 inch GI Joe figures had a charm to them. Like
Mhm.
they were just so well done. The figures, they represented the character a little more than the classifieds. I don't get me wrong, I love the classifieds and
Mhm.
I'm buying them because I love the characters. I love the nostalgia. I love that feeling of buying Joe's again as an adult and that feeling of waiting to see which Joe is coming out next. I
Yeah.
love it. I try as hard as I can not to look at the coming out next year, because I want to feel that surprise when I see them come up on the website for sale. Like I really I want to relive that. But the original ones had a charm to them that the new ones don't have. And I can't really
Huh.
put into words what that is, but like you looked at the original Storm Shadow at the time and you were like, that's a ninja, right? You're like, that's a ninja. And then Joe went crazy with the ninjas and made Zartan a ninja, and everyone was a ninja, and they were neon, and it made no sense. It was like a
Mhm.
Schumacher film of ninjas. But um like Storm Shadow came out and you're like, oh, finally somebody, Snake Eyes arch rival. He's in all white and the bad guy was white and the good guy was in black. It was
Mhm.
just so well done. But like when you look at the Storm Shadow for the classifieds, you're like, that's cool. That's Storm Shadow.
Mhm.
And this is the Storm Shadow that I've always wanted, but it's still missing that, like,
Now,
I don't know.
do you think that's the nostalgia?
Yeah,
Talking
it
like
very well
it's the
could be, but
because there are. I mean, when I collect Slash, uh, nothing will beat the first time seeing him on that commercial. It was out of
yeah,
nowhere. It was not expected, and I had to have him.
yeah.
I needed him like right then, and then actually getting him in hand, like, oh, this is everything that the commercial told me it was. And
Mhm.
as a kid, you experience the both sides of that coin, where it's advertised as this, and you get it, and it very much is not. Uh,
Right.
versus when it's I need that thing, and you get it, and it's like, aren't you glad? Aren't you glad you got this? And you are. It is
Mhm.
fantastic, and it's everything you wanted. Yeah, like with Storm Shadow, you're like, yeah, everything that you just said. It's a ninja he's purposely made this time to be a rival to Snake Eyes, not an
Mhm.
accident. And I need them. Then you get them, and you put them together, and they look great, and they're doing cool stuff, and they've got the ninja moves, and
Mhm.
it's perfect. And yeah, and seeing it now, it's we're grown, we're kidults, we're full on kidults, and we're recollecting what we had before. And even though, yes, it's cool that this is like the updated version for me, for my specific collecting needs, and to go into the display that I want. Yeah, I think there's a certain amount of reservation that maybe pulls you back a little bit from it. The
Mhm.
If anything, it might be the reveal itself that really
Right.
like ramps people up, because like you said, if you're not looking at reveals, if you're not listening to like pipeline information to get that kind of like dopamine hit when you either see it on the shelf or you see it pop up for sale, uh that's probably what's going
Right.
on.
I felt the same thing in the 2000s. Now I was
Mm-hmm.
an adult then. I was a young adult, but
Mm-hmm.
when they re-released the two packs and they repainted some figures and they had Chameleon, who was the Baroness's legitimate half sister or some nonsense.
Uh-huh.
But I felt the same thing there. Like those figures just didn't have it, whatever the it is, they didn't
Mm-hmm.
have it. And then the same thing with the Sergeant Savage and the Screaming Eagles and the Extreme. They tried those things and they just didn't have it.
Mm-hmm.
Sigma Six had their own thing going on, which was cool, but
Yeah.
that wasn't it either. And it's hard. Like, remember we talked about Star Wars, and I said Star Wars in a ubiquitous way changed the way kids played.
Mm-hmm.
G.I. Joe, as a direct follow-up to the Star Wars in my personal timeline, changed the way we played because yeah, we had the cartoon and all that, but we had the file cards and we had to create all of those characters and we had fun doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were super serious, like Duke was a, Dale had a bunch of goofy characters. Chuckles was one of the
Yeah.
goofy characters because he looked, he was running
Mm-hmm.
around in a Hawaiian shirt, right? Where in Star Wars, you were just emulating the character you were already given in multiple movies. With G.I.
Yeah.
Joe, yes, we had the cartoon, but we got to make up our own storylines. We got to buy vehicles that weren't involved because we would just find vehicles that they could fit in because of the size. So
Yes.
for years, we were writing G.I. Joe stories by
Mm-hmm.
ourselves and didn't have anything to go on. Like we never did the weather machine. We never did anything from the cartoon. We made up our own storylines and developed our own characters because when you watch the cartoon, you only have a character personality for maybe what, 10 characters.
Yeah.
Everyone else would just come and go as cameos.
Mm-hmm.
So I think G.I. Joe changed the way we played again
Mm-hmm.
after Star Wars. And I mean, my fondest memories are playing G.I. Joe.
Yeah, it was really good. Especially the cartoon was really good about, even though everything was a toy commercial, but the cartoon was very good about, yeah, introducing a cast of characters and then putting them in a situation with the implication that things like this have been going on for a long time. Like you're seeing this particular incident, but you know that at some point, maybe last week, maybe 2 months ago, maybe a year ago, Cobra tried to take over the world using radiated ants. And we didn't get to see that happen, but you know it probably happened. So when you're playing with your figures and you have whatever set team, you can have that adventure and know that if you were like a big fan of the cartoon, know that you could say whatever kind of story you did happen and know that you could just splice that directly into the show and it would be
Yeah.
accurate. You wouldn't be wrong. Because yeah,
No, they had all the goofy things, those underwater worms and
mm,
the Easter Island guys walking around. Like it
were
was it was
were
crazy.
you a fan of Serpentor showing up and taking over from Cobra Commander?
You know, we've had this discussion about other bad guys, specifically Skeletor.
Because as a filthy casual, I much preferred Serpentor because he had, again, with the wrestling thing, like he looked like a guy that would walk down the aisle to
Right.
go fight Hulk Hogan and then eventually lose to a badly done leg drop. But
Right. I still find it funny
I
that they were
liked him.
like, we need the DNA from Genghis Khan, Napoleon, and Sergeant Slaughter.
Wasn't Slaughter an accident?
Yeah, yeah.
Or did they? I don't remember.
I don't.
Offhand, but I love that they had, that was their rivalry. That was their wrestling rivalry.
Yep, exactly. I love Cobra Commander because he's such an underdog, right?
Who would have thought you'd be rooting for the
Yeah.
bad guy?
And it's like you can't even. The thing that's likable about him is he's just so unlikable. Like
Yeah.
he got beat up in school, and and now he's exacting revenge. But I mean, Serpentor was cool, and I like the idea of Serpentor. How they treated my boy Cobra Commander in the movie, I didn't much care for that. But
but he was a man. Was once a man.
But I always liked the faux, and you and I joke about this all the time, how the faux respect that he and Destro would show each other, and Destro would be like, "Yes, noble commander," and he's like, he hates the guy because he's complaining to Baroness about him. And Cobra Commander always called him loyal Destro, even though he was stabbing him in the back any chance he got.
Yeah, the constant on-screen bickering was always a lot of fun.
Right. But, Commander's just that sniveling little twerp that everyone's like, God, if you weren't such a twerp, I'd punch you, but I'd feel bad because you're such a twerp. Like, that's who he is.
He is a great cowardly heel.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, like he can be dangerous in the right situation. And when he gets the upper hand, you're like, all right, I get it. It's the same reason people love Starscream so much. He's that sniveling, conniving coward who, except Cobra Commander actually is in charge, bumbling but in charge.
Right. He's one of those guys who feels like everybody felt bad when he was young, so they wouldn't hit him, but he thought that's because they were afraid of him.
Everyone has to know how great he is.
Yeah,
so
I can say whatever I want, and no one's gonna hit me because they're afraid. Yeah.
So where are you with the current state of Joe?
You mean with the classifieds and the whole 9 yards?
Are you happy with it? Do you think they need to make some changes? Do you think
I do like them? I love seeing the reboot. Like I said, they lack a little bit of something, that it factor that the original had, but it could just be the nostalgia. But I do love the designs. I just love being a grown up and rebuying those characters in an adult way, if that's feasible.
Are they still re-releasing the classic version, like the O-Ring series? Is that still ongoing? I don't remember if they kind of tied that up.
They tied that up after the 25th anniversary stuff. They may have done a little bit after that, but nothing exciting.
What are you looking forward to? Is there like a Joe character that they have not done yet, or like a concept in the line that you want to see them do?
Well, of course, Cobra La. Like if they like a classified's Cobra La will be just outstanding. I would love it. I want Cobra La.
The race is on between Hasbro and Super 7 for that Cobra La like convention exclusive set. And you include all three. You give us, and you make like a separate box set for like a 2-pack of Minions, so that you could troop build those. Oh, that would be amazing. All right. Dana, this has been awesome. Thank you for talking about Joe's. I apologize, I didn't have a whole lot to add.
I could talk about Joe's for 3 more hours if you wanted
to. We will absolutely have to circle back to this because it's something that could be like a multi-part thing. Whoops, we had a little bit of technical difficulties, but I'm back. So if you enjoyed the episode, let us know if you've been enjoying G.I. Joe, if it's part of your childhood or part of your collecting. We'd like to know what you enjoy about it. Do you have a specific figure that you would like made? Let us know on our Twitter. It is Two Guys Talking Toys. That's the number 2. No G after the talking. Same thing with Gmail. That is Two Guys Talking Toys. The number 2. No G after the talking. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, please give us a like and subscribe. Give us a review on Spotify or any place that you found us to listen to in an audio format. Thanks for joining us. Take care, everybody.